That's it. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. You ready? Yeah, okay. Hello, my name is Cheryl St. James. Thank you, Honorable Mayor, and likewise, councillors, for providing me the opportunity to speak again today. As you know, I am a proud Hamiltonian and proprietor who cares deeply about our fantastic city. I believe we need transit and could even benefit from an LRT, but the plan we have been given is too deeply flawed for my support. As Dr. Chris Higgins identified in his 2014 McMaster report, the LRT is a bit of an oversell, and the necessary positive social and physical conditions for attracting developers, financiers, and residents are not in place. The LRT doesn't provide increased accessibility as compared to other modes of transportation. Well, we couldn't agree with that McMaster study more. But I'm here today to share with you some concerns identified in the lengthy environmental assessment report. 5,000 pages. Wouldn't you agree that it's quite lengthy and heavy if you've printed it out? May I ask, has anybody here really had the opportunity to read the report in its entirety? I won't ask you to put up your hands. If you have had an opportunity to read and digest the EA, I am sure you share some of the same concerns that I do. It seems that there are a number of environmental risks to the city for those of you who haven't had the opportunity to read this in full. Do you feel that you are ready to vote on it? Perhaps you, like many others in our community, could use a little more time to read all 5,000 pages. Our health depends on it. Your constituents are counting on you to properly review the information and make informed decisions that are the best we can make for our community. I was wondering if anyone here has spoken with the authors of the EA, Steer, Davies, and Gleave, anyone who actually wrote the EA. Or are we just accepting the EA at face value? I have a few questions about it. I'm sure you do. Would it not be helpful to our understanding of the environmental and health impacts to hear a deeper context and ask questions? I, like many others I have spoken with, are deeply concerned about the increased pollution in residential neighborhoods that will be caused by the LRT. If you turn to the air quality section of the March 6, 2017 EA, there is no mention at all of the additional pollution caused by the increased traffic congestion as a result of the loss of 2 traffic lanes. Not only that, by reducing 2 traffic lanes on our main thoroughfares, it is widely acknowledged that vehicles will be forced into our residential neighborhoods. This was confirmed by reps at the LRT info sessions and now widely reported in The Spectator, a 60% increase on Aberdeen Avenue. Well, what about the other streets and communities like Dundurn, Maple, and Dunsmuir? What is the anticipated traffic increase in those neighborhoods? I ask you, does a well-designed plan divert traffic and pollution from our main thoroughfares away from businesses to the streets where you and I live? Why doesn't the city information website talk about this? It's a glaring omission. Speaking of omissions, the LRT Light Rail Initiative website states myth, LRT will cause traffic congestion by reducing vehicle lanes. Their non-response is, and I quote, "It is difficult to predict the net effect on congestion." That is not an answer. No one appears to want to address this issue, and I believe that this needs to be addressed. Speaking of quotes, Edmonton's Director of Traffic Engineering was quoted in the Edmonton News on October 1st, 2015 as saying, there are 5 to 10 minute delays to get through intersections, and things should improve as more drivers learn to switch routes and avoid the area. This seems like a classic case of if you build it, they will go away. Is this the city's position too? I don't think that's reasonable. Does anyone else? Pedestrians and cyclists will also have to wait an additional 5 to 10 minutes to cross the street. The increased pollution caused by all of the extra idling from the traffic caused by reducing traffic lanes will not be acceptable. Remember the gridlock caused by the bus lane on King? I'm sure you can all remember the many concerns received from your constituents. We ended that experiment for a reason. That was just 1 lane. Can you imagine losing 2? I ask you again, how is that good for our businesses and people in the downtown core? What's missing from the EA report is parking. We do not have any park and rides. Successful LRT systems in North America have park and rides. For example, Charlotte, North Carolina has 7, all free. Ottawa has 16, and Kitchener-Waterloo has 6. Kitchener 6, Hamilton 0. At the recent town hall meeting, Paul Johnson stated that parking agreements are 5 to 6 years away. Parking should be part of the initial plan and included in the EA.
Cheryl, your time is...
Is it responsible for council to move the EA forward with so many answered questions?
Cheryl, your time is up.
Yeah, I said, is it responsible for council to move the EA forward with so many unanswered questions? That was my last line.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have, on the speakers list, Councillor Jackson and Councillor Brenda.
Sorry?
Thanks, Madam Deputy Mayor. Thank you again, Cheryl, for coming in. Cheryl, I think you've been here probably for most of today to hear the pros and cons. Are you if you're not comfortable responding, I'll fully respect that. If you are, given a long-time Hamiltonian that you are and business along, I believe, the corridor, you've heard the argument about modern city LRT. Any comment about that back, please?
Did you say modern city?
Hamilton, for the pro LRTers, they're saying to be a more modern transit city, LRT is necessary. Do you have a comment back on that, please?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Sorry, Councillor.
No, fair enough. Okay. No, fair enough, Cheryl. That's what I said ahead of time. If you're not comfortable, or if you were, only again, given your residency and you being a small business owner. The jobs argument, you heard a number of the unions and that speak of the jobs. Any comment about that, Cheryl?
Well, it's interesting that when that comes up, there's no respect for any of the business owners that have been paying taxes for up to 80 years. Some of them may actually be expropriated, as far as I know. As a business owner in the core, I can see what this can do to businesses, and you may be granted temporary jobs. However, no one's really acknowledging the businesses that are going to close because of the construction. I mean, you can see this photo here. I don't even know how you would maneuver getting through there. It's quite complicated, to say the least.
Cheryl.
So I don't know how customers would actually get through certain areas either. So I'm just acknowledging that there will be loss as well.
Okay. And lastly, again, as a business owner, the pro LRT, one of the arguments is the economic uplift. Trains, the light rail transit will bring the type of investment, new investment, condominiums, towers, things like that. Any comment about that, Madam Deputy Mayor, through you, please?
Through the chair, I personally do not feel that moving a train east-west in Hamilton will increase economic development, and I think we've heard that from previous speakers as well. If you truly want to address economic development, bring people in that are not already in the tax base. So if you're going to build condominiums, you don't want people coming from the mountain to have a condo on King because they're already within that tax base. The whole key is to bring people in. And I don't feel that this east-west line from McMaster to the Circle can really do that. We have a bus that does that. So you're just, in my opinion, replacing one mode of transportation with another.
Thank you, Cheryl. Much appreciated. Thanks, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Brenda Johnson.
Yep, thank you, Cheryl, and thank you for sticking to the environmental assessment. That's what we were here for, and it's good to hear some input about that. You mentioned about, you talked about the no parking, the park and ride. You also talked about when, I believe you said, was it Aberdeen closes? And how many streets that it probably would affect, not just...
Well,
I'm sorry, I should reword that. Aberdeen not closing, but go ahead.
Through the chair, my understanding is that there will be, because the cars are being diverted to all of our residential streets, they're not disappearing. We have to face that. What are the numbers? You've got a 60% increase on Aberdeen, yet all of these other streets that are residential are not being considered with respect to numbers. I think people deserve to know that.
Okay, thank you, because I know you had to go quickly. You've got your 5 minutes, so I was
Yes.
trying to jot things down as you were saying them. So, again, thank you for sticking with the EA today. That was great. I know a couple of other speakers have done the same, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Pearson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Cheryl. I, too, agree. Thank you for sticking with the EA. But I wanted to allow you an opportunity to speak of the last point on your presentation, because you didn't have a chance, and no one else has spoken to this, but I've only been hearing bits and pieces of more concerns with regards to LRT and safety issues. Could you enlighten on what you're saying here? I mean, you mentioned fatality rates at 280% higher than buses?
Correct. If you look at studies, actually, LRTs are more dangerous than buses, and usually there are no injuries with LRTs. It's death, and that is not including suicide. So how is this keeping our streets for our children safe when we're actually bringing something in that is known to be such a high incident rate of death?
Thank you. So I'm just looking, and you mentioned about the issue with emergency vehicles, certainly pedestrian and bicycles. So
trains are not meant to be sharing the road with motorists, cyclists, e-bikes, children. You know, it's meant to be on a separate, dedicated lane.
thank you. Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you, Cheryl, for coming forward. You've been to Kitchener-Waterloo?
Yes, I have.
I mean, I see the pictures.
Yes.
Did you see things there in regards to, and this is dealing with the EA in regards to our design and practice? Did you see things there that are not being implemented here?
Well, my major concern through the chair is park and ride. We've been addressing this for a very long time, and from the research that I've done and many others, it appears that most successful LRTs do have park and ride. That should be part of the EA, parking, land, etc. How do you expect accessibility to occur from people outside of the areas when there's no place to park? Should they be parking at Starbucks on Main West or the shawarma pit? I mean, Mac is very expensive, as we know, to park, and I think that it's irresponsible to go forward with such a huge part missing that should actually be included in what we're looking at.
So in Waterloo, Kitchener-Waterloo, not only did they take great steps and great strides to, in fact, it's almost 3 different approaches for the system throughout to balance the needs of those road routes, pedestrian, vehicle, and otherwise. It's a very clever way. In fact, I'm not going to make a speech, I'll make that later. But the question is, and I've been making this point all along, we haven't been able to find a transit system that isn't designed from a destination location to a destination location. In Kitchener, what did you find in regards to the destinations?
Well, it just seems a little bit more fluid, and they've got different areas with different dimension and streets, like you were speaking about earlier, and as mentioned by others, it's all about key destinations. I mean, I'm hearing that we like to compare to Kitchener in a lot of respects, but there are many, many differences, in my opinion, looking at Hamilton. And again, the park and ride is a huge factor, because you need to be able to facilitate the vehicles for people to access from outside areas.
So the reason I asked that question is because in all the studies and research that I've done with we created a checklist, and even the examples that staff have provided us on successful LRTs, we created a checklist. Park and ride was one of them. The other one was destination. Demonstrated ridership. So there's a whole litany of things you can go through to determine whether you're building towards success or building towards failure. So you identified the park and ride. We sort of talked about destination. Is there anything else that you see in this plan that you feel is putting taxpayers at risk?
We don't have the ridership to be able to sustain what we're doing. Again, LRTs can be successful, and I am for LRTs that are successful, but I feel that this plan doesn't take Hamilton into the future, or that it's progressive as many people think. It's not being against transit, and it's just saying we are for transit, and better transit, but not for this plan. It's not using existing infrastructure. And I don't think that moving people east to west is going to really do the increase to the tax base that we're expecting. I don't think it will give us the promised benefits that we're asking for.
The last point in that, because you just sort of raised it, and certainly when I was in San Diego, the first comment they made to me was, you already have rail corridors. Along Lawrence, Teach-and-Be, along the... And he said, if you're looking for an immediate fix at a low cost that meets the needs of your community from a transportation solution, that's how they started. That's Kitchener, what you observed in regards to the utilization of areas of their old rail corridor.
Well, usually you start outside and then move in. I've heard a lot of residents in Kitchener that are customers that are struggling with just getting around through the construction. This is actually a picture here. The businesses that have closed, just the quality of life of being able to live in your city. If you're in the core, for example, like many people are here, how does that affect your quality of life? Thus, the air pollution, et cetera, et cetera.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Okay.
Thank you. And I just wanted to note that former councillor and now MP Scott Duvall has also joined us this afternoon. He's in the gallery. Thank you. Good afternoon. Gaspar is next, followed by Kyle Datskew.